Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 24 of Meet the Judge. And tonight I'm delighted to be joined from Preston in the UK by arguably one of these islands in the top two handlers within these two islands. A very successful breeder, exhibitor, handler. Always around to encourage people. A remarkably nice person. And like the English claim our sports people, we still claim this person as our own because he is. Good evening, Michael. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
We're all good, thank God. And just briefly before we get into your questions, how are things in the UK right now?
Well, I wouldn't say they're in a very healthy state at the moment. I think there's a lot of people they don't really realize what's going on and how serious this whole thing is. And if people just paid a little bit more attention to it and realize that it can happen to them, I'm sure we've had friends that have sadly died from it. It's a horrible thing to happen. We're now in we've been in tier 3 since it started, but our life hasn't really changed that much. Our lifestyle, we're still working every day. What we don't do is like go out to restaurants or go for a drink. And of course, the main thing with us, we miss the dog shows.
Yeah.
I miss the dog shows terribly.
Yeah.
But apart from that, our lifestyle is still the same.
And I probably reckon we're all probably going to go back into lockdown after Christmas.
Yeah.
Which is hopefully the vaccine will make a difference.
Well, I mean, it's just been announced this evening that the window that they opened up from the 23rd for 5 days over Christmas.
Yeah.
It's just been announced now. It's now 1 day. It's
now
Christmas Day now. Yeah, that's really it. And the whole of Wales, as from midnight tonight, is on total lockdown.
So I believe.
Total. So and I think we will be shortly too, the way things are going.
And I think the north of Ireland have gone back to lockdown on the 26th as well.
Yeah.
And they're in dire straits.
I think we have to remain optimistic. My motto in life: the bottle's always half full; it's never half empty. I don't think you can let it get to you. I think you have to always hope that there is light. Things will get better.
Will you be first in the queue for the vaccine?
First there, straight away, no problem. I'll take a chance. Yeah. I want to get back to showing dogs.
Yeah. Do you think they'll return anytime soon in the UK?
I think so. I've read that the Boxer Club are having their championship show in January.
All right.
And according to Tim Hutchings, it's all go. CCs have been allocated. Their local council, I think the council, they've said yes. So that's all go up to now. I think once the outdoor show season starts, yes, I think our first show hopefully might be Welks, maybe Birmingham. Bath have just announced a 4-day show. Scotland have announced that it's going to be outdoors instead of that indoor building. So I'm hoping that things will, get better.
I think that's a very sensible way to do it. And it's been suggested over here that, let's start off with breed shows.
Yeah.
Where there can be very easily, there can be social distancing.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very, very sensible. Okay, we're going to kick off with, so I'm going to just disappear now. You'll still hear me.
Okay.
So when you were growing up, did your family have dogs? Were your parents involved in? I know you started at a very young age yourself, but was there a family involvement?
Yeah, I wouldn't say my dad was very dog-minded. He was more into soccer, football, and sport. But my mum always had poodles. She had miniature poodles and toy poodles. My grandmother had standard poodles. There's always poodles around as far as I can remember. So I just think it was a natural progression that I was going to get involved with poodles. They never showed. I think my mum bred 1 or 2 litters. But not for showing. And she didn't, do it for breeding. It's just, I suppose, like a lot of people, she wants to have a litter or 2 of puppies. but there was always poodles when I was growing up.
Okay. And your first breed yourself, what was that?
The very first breed that I bought was a Labrador from a chap called, I can't remember his Christian name. His name was O'Neill. He lived in Tremor and he had gun dogs. And I worked for him in the summer holidays when I was in school, and I fell in love with Labradors. And he sold me a Labrador that was 12 months old, called Bruce. And
Right.
I took him to his first show when he was 14 months old in Clonmel. It was a small open show. I did about 6 open shows with him. I had great fun. My dad took me. I didn't do a lot of winning. I think I got a couple of cards. But then it was school and the show scene stopped for a little while.
And you were very young when you started showing.
I think I was 13, 14 when I bought Bruce. And that was it for a while. And then I fell in love with Afghans.
Really? Because that's interesting, because I always assumed that your first breed was Pyreneans.
No. It was Afghans then. A lady called Diana Bowdler Townsend, Moonsmith Afghans, had moved over from the UK to Ireland to County Wicklow. And I remember vaguely seeing a dog she had. I was 13, 14, winning best of breed of Crufts. Because I was getting the dog world paper at that stage. Like they would arrive every month or something. And when I saw she'd come, there was a thing. She'd moved to Ireland. I rang her up and I asked her, could I buy an Afghan? And she sold me an Afghan for £25.
Good grief.
But she was
a huge amount of money then.
A lot of money, yeah. But my mom helped me out in that. Like she's done quite a bit. And I showed her for a little while, but she was a nervous wreck. And I stopped. And I think even at that early stage, I realized the importance of temperament and attitude in the ring. And she hated it. She was so unhappy.
Yeah.
And I stopped. And it was while I was exercising her in Tremor on the beach. I remember this day, I saw this big white dog coming towards me. And I knew straight away it was a Pyrenean mountain dog, because I'd watched, there was a program on television called Belle and Sebastian. It was about a young boy and his Pyrenean. That he was at the back of my mind, this Pyrenean. And this lady was called Mrs. Whittle, and she lived in Waterford. She had a small dairy farm. And she gave me some addresses where to buy Pyreneans. And I bought my first Pyrenean about a year later, but I had to save up. She was £40.
Wow.
And she was nice, but not very, very good. And at this stage, I was getting to the stage, I wanted to win, because I was also on a smaller scale. I was very thin at that stage. I was doing point to point racing, and I was doing a little bit of winning there. So, not winning at the shows, even then, it was starting to get to me. So I bought a second Pyrenean a year later. I still kept all my dogs. I never parted with them. I bought another Pyrenean, and that was when I really decided this is the breed for me. And she became my first champion.
And how long did it? So that took you quite some time to achieve that.
Yes, I think I was shown on and off at open. I showed in lots of open shows and some championship shows. My first championship show I went to was Navan Non-Sporting under Padder Crowley, and he really, really helped me so much with it, because he was very well known for Pyreneans in Ireland. And he was the first person in Ireland to go best in show with a Pyrenean called Champion Croftside Centre, owned by the Rafters in Limerick. And I always remember watching him, and his presentation was fabulous. And he gave me great advice. But the bitch I was showing, she was beautiful. I showed her in England as well. I didn't make her up over here, but I showed her here. I got a couple of cards, and I got a third of Crufts with her, which in those days,
no mean achievement.
Wow, that was great. Yeah. And I remember myself and my mother, we made a coat for her, because I had to get the bus from Blackrock to Dunleary with her, get the boat from Dunleary to London, get the train from Holyhead to London, I should say, and then get an under just to get to Earl's Court. So try and keep her clean was really difficult. And I got a third with her, but sorry, I digress. She was difficult to she was difficult to make up, because typical bitch. As soon as she'd get into full coat, she'd lose it. So
Tell me about it.
trying to get the timing just right was difficult. But I made her up, and I made her up on the Nankirk on St. Patrick's Day Dog Show, and I was thrilled. And that was my first champion. And then I bred her. I had 2 litters out of her. I bred her, and I bred the first Irish bred Pyrenean to gain his title both in Ireland and the UK, the first ever.
That was no mean achievement.
No, that was great. That was super.
And when did you transgress then into poodles?
Well, I always had poodles at the back of my mind, and I remember Joe and Jean Dobson used to come down and they'd show their dogs, and I thought Jean was a marvelous presenter, and Joe did a lovely job handling them in the ring. And I used to speak to them, and I said, one day I'll get a standard poodle. And I was at St. Patrick's Day Dog Show, and I saw John and Wendy Stretchfield. They'd brought an American dog over called Detonator of Leander, and they won the group with them under Fenton Fitzgerald. And they were staying in the Tower at Towers Hotel, and I was living in Blackrock. So I got the bus in there, introduced myself. They were staying after the show, introduced myself, and asked them, would they sell me a pup? And they said they had nothing at the time, but if I want to come over and see them and stay for a while, I did. And I went over, and they had a 6-month-old dog by Detonator. He was called Donny. And I bought him, and he became my first poodle champion Dominator of Leander. Yes. And that was the start of it from there.
And you mentioned, interesting, you mentioned Peadar Crowley, because of all the Irish judges that I have interviewed, at least 3 people have mentioned Peadar as being a huge influence on them.
He was.
And when you were starting up, aside from Peadar, there must have been other people that influenced you.
Can I change the word from influence? Can I say help?
Absolutely.
I would say straight off, I'd have no hesitation in saying Fred and Ann Cuthbert.
Yes.
Fred and Ann Cuthbert. Fred was like a second father. He's the late Fred Cuthbert. He was like a second father to me. He called a spade and didn't suffer fools gladly. But, he was so helpful. Anne was helpful. And Eileen O'Connor was like a second mother to me. Those 3 people kind of cocooned me, and they were always there for the good days and the bad days. And there was a lot of bad days at that stage, because, I was on my own with a lot of dogs, and I did struggle, but they were always there for me. And Millicent Ingram. Millicent always reminded me of Annie Rogers Clark in America. She was a very formidable lady, another lady who didn't suffer fools. And I always thought you never had to ask Millicent Ingram what she thought of her dog, of your dog, or her judging. You only had to watch her in the ring. She was so decisive, so polite, got it on with the job, and you just knew what you could just. Just a marvelous lady, a great breeder. I had so much admiration for that woman. I really, really had. There's so many other people that I can mention, so many. And if I forget anybody, I do apologize. But definitely the Cuthberts and Eileen O'Connor, and we're still friends to this day with Eileen and with Anne.
And it's funny because I think Anne and Fred were like that to an awful lot of up and coming people. I know.
Well, they were.
When I was starting off in my own breed, American Cockers, they were a tremendous help. And Anne is still helping people.
Yeah, and Anne, it sounds like a cliche. Anne has not changed one bit. No. Anne is still the same, looks the same. She just hasn't changed. And she's such a lovely person. Those people that were helpful to me then, I always said, if I ever got a bit established and when I get on a bit, I hope I could help people out that were starting off and try and give them the advice that they gave me. And, the main thing is, don't let people get you down.
Yeah.
And what my mother always said to me, follow your heart. If you feel it's right, do it. Follow your heart, because life is too short not to.
Just to relax you now a little bit now, I've got at least 3 or 4 people saying that this is better than Strictly.
Oh, crap. Well, there's no sequence, I can promise you. That's not in the equation here.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And we've mentioned you moved into poodles, but yourself and Olive Hannah were instrumental in introducing Bichon Frise into Ireland. What was it about Bichon Frise that caught your eye? What made you think that this is a breed I want to pursue?
Well, there was all years in between all the dogs and what I was doing and all this. And at one stage, I came over here to work for John Smith of Lameda Old English Sheepdogs, and purely just to learn more about coats.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 2 Bichons clipped off, and I just couldn't believe what I saw. They were fun.
Mm-hmm.
They had attitude, the pigment, and they were white. I just tend to fall for white dogs, white poodles, white Pyreneans, obviously, Bichons. Excuse me. And I just fell for them big time. And I said, this is another breed that I want to go for, And I am loyal to my breeds, poodles, Bichons, Pyrenees, but these just hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar temperaments to the poodles. And that started with, we got 2 bitches, partnership with Olive. It was a challenge to bring them into the country, and I love a challenge. There was no Bichons being shown. We had no classes, we had no club, we had nothing. So I literally dragged those 2 all around the country, all around Ireland, and bought a dog. I went over to buy a standard poodle from Wendy Stretfield, and then I knew that they had imported a lot of dogs from America. So I went back over to buy another one, couldn't afford it. So I stayed there a little while, did a bit of work for them, and then brought back Snow Shamrock of Leander,
yes,
who was mated to, as you and Rita will know. But tragically, he died at a very young age, but he did sire some beautiful stuff. And it just progressed from there, really. We got Green Stars. We got the breed recognized. There was Rita, there was Philomena, there was Mary Conroy.
right.
There was Eileen and Minnie, and there was Marie Hamill, and I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. There was that nucleus, really, and we just kind of went all over the country.
Right. And just for people who may not realize, at that time, the Irish Green Star system was on a point system. I think we were still on 16 points at that time.
Yeah.
But you had to have 5 dogs or bitches showing for a long period of time before your breed was even considered for Green Stars.
I had but one dog, 128 points, and I couldn't call him a champion.
Yeah.
Because just the number, but I wasn't complaining. It was a challenge, and I did make them up. But it just depends what you want. People moan, and I just say, get on with it. Just get on with it. Good dogs will win in the end. I've always said that. They might go through rough stages. And there was a very old, experienced all-rounder said to me, I'd had a real bad day and I knew I'd been really stitched. And he said to me, Michael, you know what? Some days you win when you should lose, and some days you lose when you should win. Take the good with the bad. Get on with it and get ready for the next show. And I've never forgotten that. Never.
Yeah. So I'm going to interrupt you here for a second because we're getting a lot of comments, Michael. But if you're going to make a comment, can I just ask you to sign off your name on the bottom of it so I know who you are? Because your names are not coming up, if you wouldn't mind. So, and Bichons back then they were trimmed, but they weren't trimmed in France for a start.
No, they weren't allowed. But that was that was in the breed standard. You were not allowed to trim, even barely tidy up. So I don't know how we did it. You can ask your wife. We used to stay 2 or 3 in the morning on the kitchen table. I don't mean me and Rita on the kitchen table, but the dogs on the kitchen table, trying our best. And we did. We got there. We won groups. We beat some of the rest of them. And we just persevered. You
And
know,
you'd no template.
Hmm?
You'd no template. This was just
no. We'd look at photographs, and even then, some ones in the UK carried a lot of coat.
Yes.
Have I touched something? Because I'm gone.
No. We can still see you.
Can you? I can't see me now. Doesn't matter.
No, we can see you. And
okay, no problem. Fire away.
In terms of wins, what would you consider was your biggest achievement in Ireland?
I would say, going the first Bichon to go best in show at an All Breed Championship show under Joe Kirk.
Yeah,
that was the best one. Making up my first champion, and I think my first best in show at St. Patrick's Day. Those three always stick in my mind whenever I think of wins.
Yeah.
Those three, they're Patrick's Day, the Bichon. Yes, they were the three. They always stay in mind.
And after some time then here, you made a life-changing decision to move from Ireland to the UK. How has that impacted on your life? And do you have any, well, this is probably a silly question, but do you have any regrets?
No, I have no regrets on anything I've done in life. I've just put it down to that's what life throws at you and you just get on with it. I have no regrets. I have no regrets whatsoever. That is not a word I don't use the word can't, and I hate the word no, and I definitely don't use the word regret.
Yeah.
Obviously the best thing has come out of it was, meeting Jeff. If I hadn't come over, I wouldn't have met him. I was doing very well showing the dogs in Ireland. And then I decided I wanted to show in the UK. So there again, I had no transport. So I would get the boat and the train, and I was doing so many shows. And then the odd time, Anne Ingram would be going over, and I could go with her, or Seamus Keane, who was showing the Old English Sheepdogs at the time. We traveled together, and we would always split the expenses. Whoever had a car, I had no car, and I just loved the buzz over here and the huge entries. And again, it was a challenge.
Yes.
It was a big challenge for me. And whatever, I was trimming at home in Blackrock at the time, and whatever money I was making, I was spending on traveling. And then for one or two other reasons as well, I decided I'd make the move. But my biggest problem was leaving my mum. That was something I was dreading. I didn't really want. I didn't know how to tell her.
Yeah.
And I did tell her. Obviously, she was upset, and I was upset. But she said it to me again. She said, "Follow your heart." She said, "You only get one shot in life, and if that's what you want to do, go for it." And I did. And I'm here since.
Yeah. And in terms of the difference between the two sports in Ireland and the UK, is there a big difference, or is?
I think the main difference is just the number of dogs. The entries are much larger. The shows in Ireland are one-day shows. The shows over here can be 2, 3, and 4 days. And it's the traveling and the numbers. I think everything else is pretty similar. But obviously, you don't have benching, which is great. You can have your own tent, which I would love to have here. But apart from that, I think it's the same. You got exhibitors, you got judges, you got dogs. I would say numbers are the main thing. Ireland is as competitive as the UK.
Is it slightly more business orientated in the UK?
I would say yes. Yes, I would say it is really, because you've got bigger kennels. You haven't got a lot of handlers. Well, you've got very few handlers now. Probably business, yes. And with the numbers, I think it's very, very hard to mix. You tend to mix with, like, if it's just toy and utility day one day. Like, I've got lots of friends in gun dogs, and if gun dog day isn't on the same day as us, I may not see them for 4 or 5 shows.
Yeah. They rarely are.
So that could be a problem, missing your friends. But I've always said that, in any breed, sometimes it's good to mix with friends outside your breed. You don't get, okay, you don't have to, but I do have some really, really good friends in Bichons, but I have great friends in other breeds, and it's good because you don't get post-mortems. You
Yes.
don't get, after the judge, you can go have a beer or whatever, and you don't get bogged down in what the judge did or you did. Or
Yeah.
it's a bit more lighthearted. You all ask how you did, and then you start telling stories. So it's nice that way. You can get out of your breed. You can so many different people to see. That's where it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better. Don't get me wrong, because I love showing in Ireland, as you know. It's just different.
And Anne Ingram is just reminiscing here that she's travelled together with you several times to England, and she was with you for your first CC with your Tio Pepe Standard Poodle.
That's right. And that was at Manchester Championship Show, Bellevue, under the late Mick Watson.
Mm.
But do tell Anne this is the censored version of the interview.
Okay. Yeah, we won't delve into that too far. So, as I alluded to earlier in your introduction, you must probably, well, you are amongst one of the most successful breeders in the UK, with Jeff. So when you're choosing who to breed, do you sit down, do you study pedigrees, or are you more of an, well, I think that dog will suit that bitch, or is it a combination?
Well, with the Bichons, we're lucky because we have our own stud dogs. Like, we've imported dogs and we've got our own dogs we've bred. So we haven't got to do a lot of pedigree studying because we know them.
Yeah.
But if we're using an outside dog, or we're bringing a new dog in, number one, I like to look at the dog. If I don't like the dog, no matter how good his pedigree is, I won't use him. I've always said that because, I mean, why use a dog you don't like the look of? Because you might end nest. So I have to like the dog, number one. And then I look at the dog, and if I like him, which I think is very important, you've got to look at your bitch.
Yeah.
And see where they complement each other, and then say, you don't want to lose anything that your bitch has. You want to improve on it.
Yeah.
That's very important. And if I'm using an outside dog, so therefore he might be an outcross. If he's an outcross, I like him to be a line bred outcross.
Mm-hmm.
I think to use an outcross dog that's outcross bred, God, you can get a llama in your line, or a yak. I think you really are playing with fire doing that type of stuff. So your answer to your question, I would look at the dog, then I would look at the pedigree, and obviously check for any health
Obviously,
issues,
yeah.
which is very important. And then if I like them, I will take a chance. I always take a chance. Jeff will tell you, I make up my own mind. I don't listen to anybody. So if I make a mistake, it's my mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how good or how much you try with pedigrees or any animal, horses, pigs, just always remember Mother Nature's got the last say.
Yeah,
and she
that's
can
very true.
put her finger in there and ruin the soup.
Yeah, yeah.
So
and you mentioned Jeff there. Do you disagree a lot on this?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes we do. But Jeff will always leave the decision up to me. But if Jeff is very adamant, that could be a big mistake. I would think twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would always, I never interfere with the terriers, the breeding program, I will interfere a little bit with the French bulldogs, but that's his cup of tea.
Yes.
And if Jeff wants to do that, and he will respect my decision with the Bichons, and he will always say it to you, Jeff will never pick a puppy, because we've got a standing joke here. If Jeff picks a Bichon pup, that's the first puppy I sell. And I'm not saying that behind his back. He would tell you that himself. That's the joke we have,
Okay.
But with the Frenchies, with the terriers, he picks them, and 9 times out of 10 he's right.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. We work well together on that.
So when you are picking a puppy, what is it you look for? when you're actually coming down to that final decision between maybe one or two puppies?
Right. Well, I must be honest with you. When they're growing up, like when they're with the mum, I try to interfere as little as possible till they're about. Obviously, we cut their nails at a very young age, and we're checking them and all that. But I just like them to grow up till they're maybe 6, 7 weeks, and then I start looking at them on the ground, playing around and that. Just have a look at their attitude, how they're coping. We move them around a lot. Like we'll have them in a playpen in the sitting room, have them in the hall, have them in the kitchen, have them out in the grooming room. Like our grooming room, we don't have a commercial grooming room. It's for our dogs. So we move them around lots of areas, lots of textured floors, see how they're coping, see how they cope with noise. And then if we like what we see, then we put them on the table. Obviously, if they're males, check for testicles and stuff like that, and check for mouths. But it's more visual with me. Obviously, if they're made wrong, that's out. But it's a very visual thing. And then when they're 8 weeks old, I separate them all, and I have small little various toys, and I throw them, and I like them to pick them up. And you give a dog something in his mouth, and straight away you can see their carriage. They lift themselves up, and it's that self-carriage. They will lift themselves up with their little toy, and they'll strut themselves around, tail bang over the back, their head up, and that's what I'm looking for, and I like it. So if everything else I like, and I like the attitude and the temperament, that one will stay. And if there's 2 in the litter similar, that'll stay. If there's 3, you're very lucky, they'll stay. I mean, you don't have to keep a whole litter, but there's no such thing as all of them. But if there's 2 or 3 that you like, because I breed for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
the surplus we will sell. But there's no point in ever saying, "Could we have a pick a litter from me?" Because I wouldn't. I breed the best, I keep the best. And I think most breeders would say that. Sometimes people do sell pick a litters. I'm not saying everybody. It's just me. And we run them on, and then we don't put them on leads till they're maybe. This is what we do. We don't put our puppies on leads till they're about maybe 3.5, 4 months old. We just leave them play around, and then again we give them the toy. We have a big long lead and collar thing, and we just follow them. We just follow them around, and they have this toy. And as soon as they drop the toy, we pick it up and take the lead and collar off, just for those few seconds, just to see the carriage, a little bit of self-carriage. And then after a while, just give the lead a little bit of a slight tug, just to let them know, hey, we're here, this is our game. And if we like what we see, we'll keep them. But we never show puppies. We might show them a few times, because if there's something that we really like, and then when they reach 6, 7, 8 months, we will evaluate them again. And if it's something that we really think we're going to campaigning a dog can be a long time. And I've seen so many dog Bichons and so many breeds. By 12 months, these dogs are bored out of their head. They go in, they stand, they move, they sit, they sleep. They have no attitude. They have no life in them. They're tired.
Yeah.
They're overdone by 12 months. I like them to grow up, and then they can hit the ring and make it fun. They can enjoy it.
It's a very valid point, actually. Billy Henderson is just asking here that if you or Jeff were unable to pick a puppy for whatever reason, is there anybody you trust to come in and give you a dig out?
No, because you know your own best. And I don't mean that by being big-headed at all, please. But I know if we weren't sure, they'd all go.
Yeah.
Unless you can say, wow, I'm keeping that. That's a very important thing. If we start having if, buts, or maybes, no, that's not going to work. They go.
Yeah.
You've got to love them there and then, say, wow, I want to run that on. Because if I can't give it a CC, how can you expect someone else to give it a CC? And that's something I'd look at, But as a puppy, obviously, you wouldn't give them a CC. But if you're looking at a couple of pups and you say, oh, I don't know which one to keep. I presume that's what the question was. I would keep the 2 of them.
Yeah.
But if there was one puppy and we weren't sure, I'd let it go.
Yeah. And do you get that feeling whenever you have something extra special? How early do you get that, or does that is it 12 months or can you see it?
That's very, very strange you've just asked me that question, because we've just had a litter of French bulldogs out of Jeff's champion bitch, and by the dog he's imported. And I have just gone overboard. There's 3 males in the litter, and I honestly, now everything has gone off the screen. Are you still there?
No, yeah, we can still see you.
Okay. Everything. What was I saying? Yeah, these 3 puppies, there's 3 males. I have never been as excited about a litter in a long time as I have about these pups, even to the stage Jeff is getting bored listening to me.
Really?
There's something very, very special about these puppies. I have a great buzz for them. Really, really great buzz. Yeah. Sometimes you can get a buzz, but I tend to not get too excited.
Yes.
In case it goes, especially with the Bichons, but so much, it can go wrong.
Yeah.
Some dogs you get very, very, like Eric. When Eric was a puppy, Bring Me Sunshine, he had it for 6 weeks. It sounds weird, but Bichons, as you know, can be a bit bloody crazy at times. Yes. He was always a very loving, steady, but used to come alive type of puppy. And he had that X factor from a young age. And I've always said great dogs never go through bad stages in Bichons. And he never did. He just kept on getting nicer and nicer and nicer. And he's still going strong. He's 13 and
very much so, yes.
Yeah, you do get a buzz. Not all, but some of them.
No, I think it's rare that you get a buzz out of that. Again, we could be here for some time now tonight, Michael, so stick with me. Susan White is just saying that, there's a thing or a conception out there that toy breeds, mouths are not important. Do you agree?
Sorry, Com, say that again.
Susan White is just saying that, there is a conception out there with some judges that mouths are not important within toy breeds. And, it's just a toy. So if the bite is bad, it doesn't really matter. Would you agree or disagree?
That the bite, that the teeth don't matter, that the bite. Oh, yes. God, no.
In toy breeds.
In toy breeds. You know what? If a Bichon had a bad mouth, it'd be gone.
Yeah.
I'm not a judge of a lot of breeds. I give tickets in Bichons, Poodles, and Pyreneans. But I would be, if I was doing, like under FCI, I can do certain toy breeds, but I'd always check if it's permissible or not. And I would read the breed standard and I'd make up my own mind. And if people said to me, oh, and this breed's okay, don't put too much emphasis, I would really have to listen to if this person is very knowledgeable and they know what they're saying. But I mean, dogs have to have teeth.
Yeah.
It's the old thing, like in peaks. Do you open the mouth? Do you not open the mouth? Pugs, that is a very fiery subject. But certainly in the breeds that I'm involved in, if it says a scissor bite, it's got to have a scissor bite. It's like in a lot of times in the best in show lineup, how many toys are overlooked because they're a toy.
Yeah.
And that can happen. I know it happens.
Yes.
So as far as the mouth issue is concerned, in the breeds I'm involved with, they must have a good mouth.
I couldn't agree with you more. So again, we alluded to earlier about presentation in Bichons and how you and Rita and Marie Hamill and et al. Had to learn how to trim Bichons. But I mean, you were a gifted poodle presenter prior to that. Do you think presentation is a gift, or is it something that people can learn and master?
I've always equated, yes, I think you're born with a certain skill, but I think it's like in a lot of things, it's up to you. You can abuse it, you can ignore it, or you can try and promote it within yourself. But I think scissoring and presentation is like breeding dogs or breeding any. You have to have a picture or an image in your head what you're trimming for.
Yeah.
Like there's no point in picking up a scissors and being a great trimmer unless you know the shape that you're looking for. And it's like breeding dogs. You have to picture the type of dog the type of puppy that you want that is close to the breed standard. You got to have a picture in your head when you're trimming.
Yes.
And I am keeping the grooming competitions completely different. I'm not even going into that
Oh,
side
no,
of it.
it's totally different.
I'm talking purely about dog
Yes,
shows, you know,
absolutely.
and also the secret of a good trimmer is hiding the faults and showing the virtues.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the secret, and knowing, and that's when knowing your breed well, how you can improve on your trimming.
Mm. Yeah.
So
I agree with you. I think personally, I mean, from my own breed, I can present an American Cocker, but I have seen people who are Javier Gonzalez, for instance, or Jason Lynn, who are gifted at presenting. And I do think there are people who can present, and there are people who are gifted at it.
yeah, yeah, and the people who are
Andy
gifted at
Burns,
it work, they work at
Van
it.
Ingram. Yes.
They work at it non-stop. You know, at the start of the year when all this started here in the UK, as you know, I'm involved in the horses, and I get horse and
Hmm.
hound every week. And there's a very top producer in the country, um, and he said he was being interviewed something similar to this, and he said, "I'm keeping my foot on the pedal," he said, "because if I take it off, I'll become complacent, and I want my animals to be ready when the green light comes on."
Mm.
And that to me is dedication.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done here. It's been a lot of hard work, but we've done it. I've got a good team of people. We kept the show dogs. Obviously, I do say that the dogs we don't show, we keep short. Because
Yes.
and
I
that's
think most
always been,
people, yeah.
I'd rather put more work into the show coats. I mean, they
Yeah.
get the same attention, but the show coats get priority,
Yeah.
and we keep them in show condition.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, I've got 9 or 10 in full coat." I said, "There's a difference between keeping an animal in full coat and keeping an animal in full coat and show condition.
Yeah.
There's a big difference."
Yeah. That is very true. And it's the same here. I mean, we're still, I mean, American Cocker gets washed regularly, and Lisa's still wrapping a Yorkie every night
Yeah, yeah.
because
But
we're
it's
waiting.
dedication. You just don't stop. And people say, "Well, it's just there in your head. It's just something you automatically do. It's just
Yeah.
there. It's done. You have to do it."
And as again, as I said earlier, you and Jeff are would be regarded as within the highest people within your field as handlers. Um, do you have a standard for exhibits that you agree to handle?
It's always been our policy. There's two things. We won't waste your money and we won't waste our time.
Mm.
That's the first thing we say to people. So if and we always say, yes, we look at your dog. We never look at it at home in their surroundings, but most dogs can be happy in their own
Of
surroundings.
course, yes.
Either come to us or we meet you at a show.
Yeah.
And then we look at the dog and we say to them, now, do you want, but some people can get a little bit touchy because they might think, oh, this dog should be made up and deserves to.
Mm.
That's fine. That's their opinion. But if we think that we can't do it, we'll tell them. If we think that we can do it, we'll say, yes, let's give it a try. We have a contract. They sign it, we sign it. And at any stage they want to stop or we want to stop, that's it.
Mm.
So there's no problem. So we will take the dog on the hope that we can make it up for the people. If we didn't think we could do that, we won't take it on.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. And when you do take on a dog to handle, what is it that allows you get into their head, and to get into their head and do what you require them to do in the ring? Because they don't know you.
Yeah. Well, number one, they have to come and live with us.
Hmm.
That's the number one rule. They have to come and live with us because you only get to know a dog when you live with them. So we don't do an obviously if they're groomed or trim breed, but we just try and like if there's a show, we would never take a dog on and the following week there's a show. It needs to be here for a month or so just to get it into. We've got to feed them. They've got to know us. They've got to trust us. They've got to be used to going into a crate for a show, coming out of a crate, going on a table, hair dried, scissoring, standing, lead training. We're happier if we get a dog that's raw, because if we get a
Really?
dog that's got a lot of bad habits, that's even harder. We prefer a dog that wouldn't even walk in a straight line. In the long run, they're easier. Um, so the dog has got to get to know us. We've got to know what buttons to press, what he likes and dislikes. Like we showed a lot of beagles for the Suttons, but there was one beagle that we won a lot of tickets with, and he was exported to South Africa. But we would have to get there. He lived with us, and we found out this dog did not like plastic bags. And we would have to get to a show, crack it on, and all the poo bags and bags that were around the ring. We would have to go there. Thank God we don't do it anymore. We would have to take all those bags down and put them up in another ring. Because if he saw a bag at a ringside, his tail would go down. We had a Wesley that we showed for clients. We had to carry him into the ring and drop him down. If you walked him under that rope, he would freak out. So you get to know little things about dogs. Once you carried him in and put him down, he was fine. Walking out of the ring, he was fine. Going into the ring, if you went under a rope or beside a rope, walk him, his tail will go down. So it's just little things you get to know. And most dogs were okay.
Okay. Have you ever had a dog that wasn't compatible?
Yeah, we've had one or two, not many. We've had one or two that, although they were lovely, they just one just didn't enjoy the traveling, because at that stage, when we had the caravan going to the shows, we could be on the road for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And sometimes we were taking 16, 17 dogs to a show, and they weren't used to it. So they didn't really settle. They would be okay if they were just going to a one-day show. So that dog had to go home. He just wasn't happy. His tail wasn't down, but he just wasn't putting it all in, and we realized that. And that really was the only one that I think most dogs we've gelled with. I'm not saying we made up every one of them. We didn't, far from it. But they were happy. But the ones that just didn't gel with us, I would say maybe one or two, no more.
Somebody asking here now, do you miss Rotties? And remember the lively Thor Mini?
God, do I miss Rotties? I think of them an awful lot. I've shown a Rot over here that Liz Dunhill bred. Yeah, I love the Rots. Of course I do. I've always loved the Rots. I often watch the Rots over here if we're on working in Pastoral Day. Yeah, I do miss them. Whether I'll ever have one, I don't know. I'll let someone else have all that work. But yeah, I do miss them. I really do.
And as a handler or an exhibitor handler in the UK, what has been your biggest achievement?
What has been my biggest achievement?
In the UK as an exhibitor or handler?
I would say going best in show with Make It Crufts. That was probably that was my biggest thrill, I'd imagine. Yeah. Going best in show at Make It Crufts.
And on that subject, you and Jeff, between you, have won best in show at Crufts 3 times. What's it like?
9 groups.
And 9 groups. But when you get to the best in show and that judge points his finger at you, what is that feeling like? Because many of us will never get it.
God, it's strange, even now thinking about it, it gives me goosebumps. When that judge points or walks or whatever they do, you just feel it's a buzz. I couldn't describe it. It just very quickly, you just say to yourself, I've done it. It's the most fantastic feeling I've ever had that day with Mick. But it doesn't last long. It's over. All this happens so quickly, as you've seen. You immediately have to go back and concentrate on your dog. You got to think of the dog first, because so much is going on. You don't want it to happen. You don't want people getting. You just have to concentrate on your dog, and the winning feeling. It's lovely, but you can see the photographers. You can see the buzz. You can see people telling you what to do, and I'm not really that clever. I can remember everything, so I do have to be guided an awful lot. That's where Anne Bliss was wonderful, and she knew it. I was quite nervous, and you just have to concentrate on your dog. And it's when it's over. I remember when we won the group at Louis, who was the first Bichon to win a group of Crufts. Chris Amu had won the group and he'd gone best in show. And we went back it was in London, and we went back the next day, obviously, and Chris went best in show. I can't remember who went reserve. And it was about 8 or 9 in the night. It could have been 10. I don't know. We were in the car park in London, and the only people in the car park was myself, Jeff, Lulia Moo, and Grant, the Afghan. Gable, I think.
Really?
It was empty. Just walking out, and Chris turned to Jeff and he said, "Do you know what?" he said. "We're the only 4 buggers here in this car park. I've won best in show at Crufts. You've won the group. What do we do now?" And we couldn't find a pub to go to. There was nowhere to go home. There was no one there. It was only the next day, I think it really sunk in what happened. So in answer to that, it is a great feeling. It's wonderful. And afterwards, I remember in the hotel that night, we really celebrated well into the early hours of the morning. But in that actual ring, it happened so quick. It's a buzz. I can remember every second of it, but you got to concentrate on the dog.
Because it is a very surreal surroundings with the spotlights and the cameras and the whole razzmatazz. Keeping your dogs in the zone must be
because you're not allowed to. There's little X's on the carpet where you stand, and as a toy person, you're not allowed to kneel down.
Yes.
You got to keep everything is just obviously because it's televised. Everything is down to a T. So Scarf Michael was a fabulous dog to show. He really was electric. He was a great dog to show, but he could get bored very quick. And you really had to keep him occupied, but not over. You didn't want him to burn himself out before the occasion. So it's like the Bichons. When do you take them? When do you put them on the table to get them ready? You leave them rest. It's an awful lot to keep the dog, and that's the important thing. Not the judge, not the handler, the owner. It's the dog. You got to keep him happy because it's a hell of a long day.
Yeah,
and it's not natural for them because they're used to dog shows like every week, but they're not used to all this. So it does take a dog with a great temperament, and we've all seen a few dogs hit the deck in the group there across because it's just too much, and it's very sad.
Particularly if your group has actually been on that day, it's a bloody long day for any dog.
Really, really long. But it's the show everyone wants to win at.
So, as you said earlier, you do judge. You're an FCI judge, and you also award CCs in many breeds. Do you like judging?
It wouldn't be first on my list. No, I love to show. I've turned down a lot of judging appointments because I'd miss out on showing. And that's what I want to do. I have a goal. I've got my dreams, and my dreams is not to be an all-rounder or a best in show judge or even a group judge. I had a dream to do Pyreneans, Bichons, and Poodles across. They were my dream, and I've done them, and I'm happy. I'm doing a little bit of judging next year, but it's not on my list, to be honest with you. I'd be very honored if I'm asked to judge, but maybe people are getting fed up asking me and I'm saying no. I love to show. So in answer, yes, I enjoy it when I'm in the ring, but to get me to say yes, on 1 or 2 occasions, Jeff has just said yes in a letter and sent it back without telling me, because he thinks I should do it. And then there's more bloody rows, but I do it. Once I'm in there, I'm happy. Because for all my bravado, I am a little bit, I get a bit, I overanalyze myself after judging, and I beat myself up. And I'm terrible. I think, why did I do, I can get myself wound up after judging. So I prefer to show an answer.
And would you have any advice to give aspiring judges before they start judging?
God, don't be in a hurry. That seems to be the thing now. Everyone is in a hurry to judge.
Yeah.
Buy a dog, show a dog, win or lose, let's do judging. And then they moan when they don't. You hear people that are in Dogs a Wet Day and they're wondering why they're not given CCs or, SASIBs or, everyone is in a hurry. Do your apprenticeship. Watch the good judges. Watch
Yes.
they go over the dogs. Watch how they command the ring. Read your breed standards. Don't be afraid to ask questions at the right time, but don't be in a hurry. I see so many people going in there, and you can see. I always love to watch where people put their hands on a dog, and after 2 dogs, you can tell straight away they know nothing about this breed.
So
They're
true.
touchy-feely people. You got to judge with your hands and your eyes. You got to get underneath that coat if it's a coated breed.
Absolutely.
And you can see
Don't be
them,
afraid to get into that coat.
yeah, they're touchy-feely judges, and you can say, wow, this is a waste of space, Not many of them, but you do see them, or you see people and they're very nervous. And in your heart and soul, they do know, but they're just not ready.
Yeah.
So my answer is, don't be in a rush. Take your time, do lots of open classes, do more than you need. I mean, you can do all the exams in the world. You can tick all the right boxes. You can answer all the right questions, but you need practical experience.
That's so true. I couldn't agree with
Definitely.
you more.
And especially, why do people want to judge all other breeds when they can't even get their own breed right? If they have a breed.
Yeah, that's very true, actually.
They have a breed.
And now we know there is critiquing in the UK, but it's first to third, if I'm correct, and the critiquing is done after the show is completed. Would you like to see European style critiquing come into the UK?
I think my reaction to that would be, I don't think it would work with the pure numbers. I think that would be a down. I don't think it would work. I'm not against critiquing. I think it's very good. I do. If it's done properly, not nice dog, move well.
Yes.
All this type of stuff. I think so many people get away with doing that. But if it's done correctly, I think it's very, very good. But I don't think it would work here because of the numbers.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you have a slow judge, geez, you'd need to have them a weekend doing one breed, some of them, so you'd want lights on your car, some of them. So if you had a slow judge, it could be a big problem.
And you've shown in Europe. Do you like it?
I enjoy it. Yes, I enjoy
it.
Because I think you can only have, is it 80 dogs or something?
Yes.
And you know the timing and you know what's got to be done. Where if you had maybe 140 dogs and you had to write a critique, I don't think and you have the groups here.
Yeah.
And the groups don't start early. So I do enjoy writing a critique, and I will be as honest as I can. But the critique has got to equate to the dog. And I think when you I think here there's a lot of judges I respect, but if you read any critiques that Zena Thorne Andrews writes, you know straight away what breed she's talking about without looking at what she was judging. Yeah. Because you can see and I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but you just know.
Yeah. And there are so many. A lot of judges have said that this thing of writing the same critique for every dog. They're not always.
Stamp it down. You see it. Nice dog, move well. Unlucky to meet the winner.
Yeah. And then you give it a very good if you're away judging. Hello.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can see the critiques. I think they're a good idea, but I just don't think they'd work here.
And what about grading?
Wow, yes, I would like grading big time here. I do agree with that because there again, I'm going back to numbers. You could have a very large class of really super dogs.
Yes.
And you can only place first 3, 4, whatever you place. And you'd have to leave a lot of lovely dogs go cardless.
Yes.
And these people might think, oh God, the judge doesn't like my dog or it's not good. That's not the case. It's just that the class was so strong. These dogs had to go cardless. Where if you had a grading system, I think it would help people. And I think it would give a little bit more enthusiasm and a bit more for people to continue to show. Because if you're not a seasoned exhibitor and you're thrown out of a class, you might think your dog is rubbish or something. And sometimes it might be. But if it's a really strong class, why can't a judge give a card to say, yes, I think your dog is excellent or very good, but he can't be up with the top 3 or 4, if
I
that
think
makes
that's
any
a
sense.
very valid point. It certainly within UK terms, because of your numbers, it must be very much the case that you throw out a lot of dogs that are excellent quality, but have just met better dogs on the day.
Yeah, so to be able to grade them, I think, yes, would be a good thing.
And Ingram's just wondering what you think of the new KC judging scheme.
Oh, God. And I haven't got a long weekend, girl. God. That's in my book. This is the censored version. I've told her.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I'll give you an answer. I don't really know enough about it. And that is being very, very honest. I don't know enough. Does Anne mean about how to award CCs?
The question simply says, what does Michael think of the new KC judging scheme? I'm assuming yes.
Don't know enough about it, Anne. I'm sorry.
And
Because
Marion,
I'm not as involved in the judging, I don't know enough about it. And I wouldn't say the wrong thing. I just don't know enough about it.
That's fair enough. And Marion Finney is saying that you have a long association and love with Irish Wolfhounds going back to Shalala Seal days.
Yeah,
Would you like to judge the breed?
I've done 2 club shows. I love them. I love Wolfhound. I worked with Sheila for a year and a half when she lived in County Wicklow.
Yes, I read that wrong. Sorry.
And I went over and I stayed in Germany with some Wolfhound friends. Yeah, I love the breed. I think that I'd love to judge them. I've done, as I said, I've done some club shows. God, yeah, I would. I'd love to judge them. I love the breed.
So, as a handler, or as an exhibitor breeder, what dogs, past or present, would you have liked to have owned or handled?
Crikey. Well, number one, although she was ours, I never handled her. This Jeff handler, I would have loved to take Fresno in the ring. In my opinion, I think she was as near perfection as you'll get in any breed. I think she was just perfect. She was beautiful to show. She's beautiful to live with. She was just perfection. And she won the group of Crufts from Veteran. And if any dog should have gone best in show, it should have been her. I thought she was the most unlucky dog not to go best in show. I was nearly in tears that day watching her. She put up, he won the group with her. It was the last group on the last day. She was exhausted. She was tired. She never gave up, never gave up. So they took him out of the ring and he picked her up and he came out of the ring and they were rushing him around to the other side. And she was really anxious in his arms. You could see it. He put her down. She did the biggest pee she's ever done in her life. She just shook her head and she went right back in again. And she was 11 years old. And we had traveled down we were there for 5 days. And for an 11-year-old bitch, she was fine. I mean, she's at the end of the bed. I mean, she was like royalty, trust me. But still, till that Sunday night at 9 o'clock, she never gave up. And if dog should have went best in show, that upset me big time. That's one of the worst I can think of. If Fresno, I loved the Afghan Pavlavi putting on the Ritz in America.
Yes.
Oh, what a dog. I mean, just charisma, X factor, attitude, style of high order. Going around that ring, it was just the Afghan, and we didn't look at anything else. That I would love to have handled. And then, of course, I've been a great fan of Elmo, the GSD, belonging to the Cullens that Stevie Cox showed. I mean, I loved that dog. I could watch him all day. I would have loved to handle him. And before anybody laughs, I have handled a German Shepherd and I have been pulled out in a group. You can ask Liz Dunhill that. It's on YouTube. If you laugh, because I nearly fell. I didn't realize how long a bloody German Shepherd lead is. And the thing got wrapped around my leg when we were flying around the ring, and I thought I was really, doing the fucking Stevie Cox. I forgot he was 6 and 5. And it was a very slippery ring, and the dog saw the exit gate to get out of the ring, and I didn't know what to do. And someone, I don't know, presumably the owner, whoever it was, just shouted, "Turn." This is how well this dog was trained. And the bloody thing just turned and kept on going for him. It was great. That was my German Shepherd, Andy. But Elmo and his temperament, because I must tell you, one year Eric won the group at Welsh Kennel Club and Elmo won the group. And we had to stay over. We stayed in the Metropole Hotel, and they wouldn't allow dogs into the bar. So we sat like in a kind of a loungy place. And I was lying down. Are you there?
Yeah, we can still see you.
I think I pressed something again. Elmo was lying down, and Eric was lying down, and the two of them were beside each other. And we have no photographs of it. And it just said so much for their temperaments,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is there a dog owned?
Oh, hang on. There was one more. No, that was it. They're the three. Sorry, beg your pardon.
And a dog that was owned by yourselves. You've mentioned Fresno. Now, owned by yourself. That was extra special.
Yeah. Me. Okay. Well, I suppose I'd have to say my own dogs. I suppose Sadie, the standard poodle, champion, something special. She was special. She just knew how to go up a gear. She was wonderful to show. She'd just go into the ring and she'd just go. I loved her and I loved Eric. They were great dogs to show and they're great dogs to live with, and it's strange. I mean, both of them were dog of the year, but both of them won group of Crufts and both of them are the breed record holders. So apart from that doesn't make them great. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I love showing them. And then I'd have to say Buster, the American dog, the American Bichon, that we imported. I mean, I'll be honest, he made me look a good handler. You give him to a child and he just knew what to do. He was just, and he changed the breed over here. I mean, even people that won't say it or maybe don't really get on with me, he gave them attitude, he gave them legs, he gave them career. He just brought the breed to the fore, and he just woke them up. And he's done a lot for the breed. He wasn't a public stud because that was one of the clauses that I had to sign when he came over. But I could use him. But through his grandchildren, and then other people could use him. A hell of a lot of champions came out of that line and still do. Yeah. So him.
Yeah.
And so I think those ones. There was the dog. There was a Pyrenean that I loved. That was in Japan when I judged, called Aldo. I would have loved to have owned him. There's a lot of other dogs. I could go on all night talking about dogs I would have loved to have handled or owned, but I'm very lucky with the ones I've had. And I suppose putting on the Ritz was very, very special. And Elmo and dogs like that. They were great dogs. All came from great lines and great breeders and great handlers.
Yeah. So you're having a dinner. Jeff is probably doing the cooking.
I don't cook. So, don't cook, can't cook.
Name 4 guests, and they can be past or present, that you would have to invite to this dinner.
This would be an Irish party. Right. Okay. I would ask Fred and Ann Cuthbert.
Yeah.
They like Fred. They were like my parents to me. They were Eileen O'Connor. We're still great friends to this day. Another, like a second mother. Those 3 people were the most important people in my life at that stage. And I can't say 4, so I'm going to have to do 3 more. So you can't shut me up on this one. And this is not in any order, but here are the 3. I'll name the 3 and then I'll tell you why. I'd ask June Wall, Joyce Crawford, and Anne Ingram. I know there's more. Of course, Jeff would be at the head of the table. If I didn't say that, I'm in trouble. But I have to ask those people because they were the people that just have to be them. June Wall, because I've known June for nearly 40 years. She's been my partner in poodles for all that time. She's made up umpteen champions, both here and in the
Absolutely,
UK.
yeah.
For us. She's a great friend, and she would entertain us.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a lot of fun. That would be June.
Mm-hmm.
Joyce Crawford, we started showing dogs together. We showed the German Shepherds and the Pyreneans. I stayed with Joyce when I went up to the open shows in the North of Ireland, and Joyce would stay with me when she came down to Dublin. And we never had a crossword. I loved when Joyce used to come and stay, but she always used to bring great steaks because I couldn't afford steaks then. And we were friends, and I've known Joyce. And up to this day, Joyce still sends me a St. Patrick's Day card with a bit of shamrock in it. You know, we've
Right.
been friends ever since. And Anne Ingram, I would ask Anne because we traveled to a lot of shows, we great friends. And even before we were friends, I always admired her and her mum for the boxers and the poodles. And I would watch them. They'd bring a large team to the show. And I used to say, God, I'd love to be like that one day. They were, such great breeders.
Yes.
And they're so nice. They're such good people. I think Anne is one of the top judges ever to come out of Ireland. I have a lot of respect for her.
Absolutely.
I really do. I think an awful lot of that.
I have
And
to say, one of the most interesting people, like her mother, to sit down and have a conversation with.
and also she's got great taste in wine, and that would be very important. And I can vouch for that. So they would be my people at my Irish dinner.
Okay.
That would be a
And
night to remember.
again, you've mentioned that, and this is a little side question, Michael, but it's not a trap. That you mentioned Anne and Fred again, and Eileen, and how much of an influence they were on you.
Yep.
But as I said earlier, in the early days of Bichons, you were so encouraging to people, particularly when you bred that first litter.
Yeah.
And you helped, and as you say, you and Rita would be down to the wee small hours of the morning, trimming Bichons, trying to get the shit. And you're still encouraging people, and I know you are because I have obviously friends that are in Bichons that are associated with you, and you're a huge help and guidance to them. How important do you think that is?
Well, I think anybody starting off in dogs needs encouragement. And I think they need to be told that they have a good dog or a mediocre dog. And if they want to listen, that is part of the battle. I will always try and help anybody. But then I hit a brick wall with them when they start this, I know it, or they think they know it. I'm not saying people should listen and shut up. I love people that ask questions, but there's questions and questions. And I think it's good to encourage people, but this is what the sport is all about. It's a very expensive hobby, and I always say, I say to people, if I want a day out, I'll go to Chester Zoo. I won't go to a dog show. I go to win. If I want to have a day out, I'll go to the zoo. And I think with people who bring puppies out, especially new people coming to a show, it must be very daunting because they don't know many people and they stand there. And I've heard, they arrive at the dog show. What do I do next? Where's the ring? Where's the bench? What do I do? And they're totally lost. And unless you can take these people under your wing and help them, we lose them and we lose entries. And without all these people, there'll be no dog shows. There'll be no future. You have to encourage people. You have to help people because we were all nobodies with no faces when we all started off. Like you hear people say, oh, God, he's a face. He knows this. We all started off at the bottom. We all had to work up. And I remember when I started, I'd look at all these people like Harry O'Donoghue and Fenton Fitzgerald and, Maureen Holmes, all these people who were all well known. And there was everybody, and I forgot, everyone knows them and this type of stuff. And you feel a bit lost. So I feel it's very important to make people feel welcome and help them.
Yeah.
And I think it's your duty to do it because people did help you along the way. And I think it's up to you to to repay a little bit of kindness and to help people.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And is there a judge or breeder in the UK, in Ireland, or the rest of the world that you have a great admiration for?
Yeah, there's a lot. Judge wise, I would have to say Ellis Hume and Terry Thorne.
Yeah.
They were way up there in the ladder. There's a lot of other judges, and but if I start naming them, it just sounds as oh, they're alive and they're judging and all this. But I think those two judges were probably two of the greats in my eyes. Exhibitors or breeders over the years. Well, I would have to say Claire Coxall with the Tio Pepe Poodles. Number one, she was a great mentor with me, and she bred over 120 champions. I think she was a superb breeder. There was a lady in poodles called Astrid Gierski, a top scorer, miniature poodles in Norway. She gave me so much advice and a marvelous breeder, superb poodles. I thought the world of her. And I've got to mention Zena Thorne Andrews because over the years she's constantly produced champion after champion, Irish Wolfhounds, Daxies, and still doing it. She is, to me, she's a fantastic breeder. And then there's this woman in Japan called Mrs. Mochizuki, who's got Pyreneans. And I didn't know who she was, but I gave this dog called Aldo, who I thought was superb, best to breed when I was out there. And she couldn't speak a word of English, but I got through an interpreter, and she asked me back to her house, which was outside. She lived in the country, and I went back. She had about 40 Pyreneans, and I never saw dogs kept in more beautiful conditions, beautiful, and type after type after type. And it's funny, Albert White was out there the following year, and he gave the same dog best to breed and raved about it. And both of us have it up there with some of the best. When we were asked to do the Kennel Club review here in the UK, I would have her. I mean, there's others, but I probably can't even think of them. But there's so many. But they're the people that I would have up there. I think are fantastic, dedicated over the years, and still doing it.
And here we go now. We could be here for some time. Your funniest or most embarrassing moment as an exhibitor or judge?
Oh, Christ. It's been a few of those ones. This is the sense of let me think. About 9 years ago, I was judging Pyreneans, and I forget what show it was. And I was doing open dog, and as you know, you check for dew claws. And as I bent down, the whole of my backside went right through my trousers, and I mean the whole lot, from the crotch all the way around, everything just opened up, and everyone either saw it or heard it, and I didn't realize it was the whole of my backside had fallen out, literally. So I stood up, I went back to the table to tell the steward I made my mind up, and she told me what happened, and I was so in the zone to give out the ticket, I didn't pay too much attention. So I gave the ticket out, and Jeff was outside the ring, and he said, "Michael," he said, your trousers. He said, the whole backside is gone on them. So anyway, the steward, who is now a group judge, and I'm not going to say who she is, but she killed me. She said, "Come back to the first aid tent, and I'll stitch you up." She said, "Say you're having a 10-minute break." So anyway, I told them, and they all knew what it was. So I went back to the tent. Now, she'd take your trousers off and give them to me. And she was in a caravan at the time. So she went back to the caravan. She's got needle and thread. And I said, "Remember, I have to do the bitches." And I hadn't stayed in a hotel because I went for the day. So I hadn't got to change trousers. And I said, "Remember, I've got to do the bitches. And I got to check for dew claws. So make sure it's strong." Oh, she won't bloody move, she said. Anyway, she stitched it up. Now, these trousers were tight when I left for the shows. They were tighter when I put them on. I mean, I really struggled to get the bloody things back on me. Anyway, I did. And then when I started doing the bitches, I thought, well, how am I going to kneel down in case the same thing happens again? And then I remembered well, if I kind of just kneel sideways, you know the way women get out of cars and they throw their knees out first. And I was trying to practice this. Well, I said, well, if I do like a little bit of I can't think of the word. But as I did it on Puppy Bitch, I kind of tripped a little bit. But I did compose myself. But I got the hang of it, how these women get in and out of cars without showing everything. And I did it. I got right through it. But as soon as Pyrenees were over, let me tell you, we got in the car and I took my trousers off and I drove home in my jocks. I didn't even stay for the group. But yeah, that was a funny one for me anyway. Two others, but that's another story.
Okay. Now I know I know where this is probably going to go, but if you hadn't started showing dogs, what sport would you have ended up in?
Horses, definitely. I would have loved to, like when I lived in Tremor, I was very thin. I did some point to point, and I loved the horses. But you know, my path led to dogs. But if I didn't, I would definitely love to have bred and shown horses. I love Irish drafts. I love thoroughbreds. I did show here. I did compete.
But you are still involved in dressage, are you not?
No, I did literally showing. I showed hacks and I showed cobs, and I didn't do jumping because I'm a coward. I don't believe in. I want to live a little bit longer. But then I had a bad fall about 10 years ago, and I realized you don't bounce as well when you're over 21. So I don't show anymore, but I do show my miniatures. And, two of us go along to the shows, and we're doing very well with them. We've got 3 or 4 Supremes. We have a nice foal at the moment, and we've got a couple of more foals due next year. And so we like showing them, and we love the Arabs. I would love to. So in my answer, I would love to have bred Arabs, thoroughbreds, and Irish drafts. Horses definitely would have been a part of my life. Still are, but if it wasn't dogs, I would have gone into the horse business. No,
I mean, you don't just have dogs where you are. I mean, you have miniatures, and I mean, this must be take you a full day to look after.
We start at 6 and we finish at 6.
Wow.
We've got the horses. We have the kennels. We've got Jeff's got his birds. He's got his aviary. He's got his golden pheasants. He's got a lot of birds. We used to breed Burmese cats, but we stopped. We used to have about 16 of those, but we now have exotics. And exotics are what you would call the lazy man's Persian. They're a Persian with short hair. They're very beautiful. So we have those as well. But it's lovely. I mean, it's, you know, our hobby is our living. We're blessed like that. And, you know, there's never a dull moment. It's a great life, and I wouldn't change my life for the world. I'm very happy. I'm very content, and I'm thrilled. I'm still 22.
God, fair play to you.
I'm great, 22, but you know, life is good.
And the world of horses is that as competitive as dogs?
Oh God, yes. yeah, it is. It really, but you know what? The horse world, in what I'm involved in, if they've something to say, they'll say it to your face.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, when we started off with the miniatures, you know, there was a lot of professionals out there. And like the dogs, there were some that were really, really helpful. I mean, there was one woman, and we're still friendly to this day. And funny enough, she used to show Great Danes. Her name is Ronnie Jones. And she came up to us at one of our earlier shows, and she was more than helpful. But I was looking at her ponies, and although ours were clean and looked good, hers were extra clean and looked extra good. You know, that bit of X factor. And I went up and I asked her. I looked at all the people, and I thought, well, she looks the best. I don't know who she is. And I'll ask her. And when the judging was finished, and she told me, and we became great friends. And we have our big special club championship show every weekend at Malvern, and it's a 2-day show, and it's just a great event, and I love it. But we haven't had one this year, so
no,
everything is on hold.
Yes. And if you could be transported to another country, where would it be?
South Africa.
Really?
I would live there if I could. I love it.
Really?
We go there every year. We've been there about 13, 14 times. I love it. Absolutely love the country, love the people, love the food, love the weather. People think we're crazy going there, but as I said, you could be knocked down crossing the road. Life is what you take it. Nothing touch wood has ever happened to us out there. You know, we're not foolish. There's places you just don't go.
Absolutely. But
But
apparently the people are beautiful. They're so
wonderful, wonderful
absolutely
people.
wonderful.
And our best friends who've got stables out there. I mean, he's Irish,
Mhm.
and kind of we hit it off straight away, and we stay there for a short while. We stay in an apartment down. There's a place called Umhlanga Rocks, which is a beautiful place down by the beach. We stay there, or might go on safari. Yeah, we're hoping to get out there next May, but it's going to depend on the situation, what's happening
Of course,
here, about
of course,
traveling.
of course.
So
And
that's my country.
finally, my friend, if you could write your epitaph, what would it be?
Christ. He worked hard and he played hard.
Fair play. Fair play.
Or
Well,
he had a sense
yeah.
of humor.
Well, there's no doubting that now. Michael, it's been bloody brilliant.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's been interesting, funny, informative. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's going down a storm, judging by the comments coming up.
I hope everybody did, because I was a little bit anxious doing it, I'll be honest with you. But as I said, Colm, it's my opinion, you know, and that's all it is. It's just an opinion. It's not a train crash. No one's died. And if people don't like it, well, look for the next week, maybe.
No, I think that's very important that people speak their mind and
Yeah,
you are who you are, Michael. I don't think anyone
long
will ever.
enough. I just try my best. That's all you can do.
So it only remains for me to thank everybody for watching tonight. This has been episode 24. My God, I can't believe I've been doing this since March. We will not be broadcasting next Saturday because it's Stevens' Day. However, on the 27th, which is Dublin Dog Show Society's traditional date for our show, I'm going to have a very extra special guest that I will announce next week. It remains me only to thank Michael very much for taking part. I know he was nervous, but he's done a brilliant job. Jeff can relax now. There was no cursing, no bad language. He was very well behaved. And it just remains me to wish both of you a very happy Christmas. Hopefully we will see you on the other side, Michael, somewhere.
Thank you very much. You never know.
And to everybody who's been viewing and anyone who has been watching, very happy Christmas to everybody. Stay safe and just look after each other. So